Hello, kindred spirits. So I got this chance to look at this beautiful gown that is, I believe, from between 1905 and 1908 and take a pattern from it as well as take a bunch of notes and detailed photographs, and I'm so excited to share that experience with you. This dress is not mine, however, it is a beautiful example of an Edwardian dress. And when I was given the option to be able to take patterns from it, I was very, very excited. I currently don't really have a place to keep antique clothing myself. I don't have a room that's really climate controlled in a way that I feel comfortable keeping anything long term, but the chance to get to look over this gown was one I couldn't pass up. So today's video isn't a tutorial as such, but I wanted to go over some of the things that I found while I was examining this gown. I found it both very enlightening and encouraging. I love sewing, but one of the things I find about myself is I am very judgmental of my own work, and I tend to see historical sewers as much neater and better at their expertise than I am. This dress is full of detail. However, it is a great example of using unconventional methods to get a job done while still having it look great when it's finished. For example, I'm not sure if the cloth flower was originally planned or not, but in examination I found it was the perfect piece to hide the fact that the back of the waistband wasn't exactly the neatest thing ever in its stitching, and that the little flower ended up sitting over all the mess and hiding it quite well. Examining this dress really helped to remind me that we're all human and we all make mistakes. In the end, what matters is, do you love what you made? Do you want to wear it? The techniques of how you made it are far less important once you're wearing it. This dress has a beautiful lace insert. It's sewn in the normal way. However, once I turned it over, I discovered that the sewer of this gown had left the edges raw. Normally, I'm one for neatness, and leaving that raw edge would be a big no-no. However, this dress has lasted over 100 years just fine, so maybe my propensity for neatness is sometimes a little bit overblown. The way I learned how to sew things in college, and the things that I've learned reading Victorian sewing manuals, are one way of doing things, but perhaps not that way that most people would have ended up doing them. This gown is covered in pin tucks. They're tiny, beautiful pin tucks all over. However, one thing I noticed in examining and measuring the gown is that those pin tucks are all, to some degree, uneven. There's definitely measuring, but at the end of the day, it was get it done, don't stress over perfectionism. This is usually the antithesis of how I operate. I would have been agonizing over those pin tucks for probably days trying to get them each to be exactly right. Another area I usually overstate perfectionism in is when I'm sewing on closures. I'll spend quite a while measuring out and trying to evenly space out all my closures. The person who sewed this, look, they didn't even get the whole closure bar perfect. They had to add a little bit on later on, after the fact, because it wasn't long enough. One of the details I love about this gown is that it has some embroidery on it to give it some texture and interest. However, whoever embroidered this, they really didn't spend a lot of time. It's beautiful, but they didn't stress about taking out any mistakes. They just said, that's fine, and moved on. There are places where they forgot the pattern that they were doing and just changed it slightly to be a different pattern, all while still keeping the overall effect. I love that. I think the most beautiful example in all of this, though, of mistakes are okay, are the fact that the shoulder seams aren't even. This shoulder seam is at an angle, while this one is straight. They're not even placed the same height. They're joined differently on each side, and it looks like perhaps they were even whip stitched into place. I'm pretty convinced that part of that is because this dress was edited and it was for a bigger person and then later reduced for a smaller person. I also think it's very possible it might also have been a different style gown that was readjusted for the era and the styles of that time period. This is an absolutely gorgeous dress. It wasn't until I inspected it closer up that I even realized there were so many little spots that were kind of wonky and different. I think what it reminds me is that as long as I love what I make and I want to wear it, in the end, it doesn't need to be museum worthy. Imperfection is human. And who knows, maybe in 100 years, somebody will look at my imperfection and find it as encouraging as I did in looking at this gown.